Hi, it's Danny Fleming.
And Marcus Collins. We never know who's going to go first there. So,
I'm always first.
with MA Properties. And tonight we have
the Lexington Market Review for 2021. We're going to cover what happened in 2021 and also what we think is going to happen this year based on, experience, all that sort of stuff and what we're seeing in the market. But, 2021, whoa, it was a doozy. So sit down, sit back, get a glass of wine, and let's get going.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So why do we do these? Well, we figure, look, it's easy to get information and data these days, but it's really hard to make sense of what's going on and to use it to your advantage. So this is why we take the time to explain these things. And we're serious about every data point and detail. And we obsess over the market.
A little bit.
We're on this
all the time, unfortunately.
I don't know how many times a day checking out what's going on here and what's going on there. And, and so we have fun with this. So where do we go for information? It's exactly the same place that you can go for information. It's on our website. I have our website open all the time and I'm always in the stats pages. We didn't count it. Here's some icons that show some of the data that we have for towns in the area, 50 odd towns in the area. But I think there's something like about 15 different types of information that you can find on the website. And for each one of those, inventory levels, absorption rates, sales price distribution, things, we have that information for over 50 towns. And in some of them, it's split between whether you're interested in single families or condos or even multifamilies. So go and poke around. It's really useful information, really helps you understand what's going on because you can look at what's going on in the past and what's happening, what the current trends are. But where you go to it is on our homepage, scroll down and there's statistics. So click on that and you go to the main page where all the info's there. Mm-hmm. So what is the 2021 market review? So if you live in Lexington, we will be delivering this, the post office will be delivering this sometime in the first week of February.
That is the plan.
It's headed to the printers the last week of January.
Indeed it is.
Yes.
So I guess what Danny's saying is I'm writing it right now. So yeah. I've got the task of kind of pulling it all together.
Get going with it.
Right, so,
not get going with it. He is going with it and everything, but...
Right.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that it gets to you as quick as possible.
Yeah, first week of February.
And that's part of why, we want to give this information now because we're already, believe it or not, the spring market has pretty well already started again. So people are anxiously trying to figure out what happened last year and what's going to happen this year. So this is why we wanted to do this market review and just fill you in on what we're seeing. But you will get the booklet soon and there will be a digital copy on our website as well under community. So 2021 neighborhood sales, that's also another piece of information.
It is.
Do you want to talk about this one?
I have to pull that together as well. Real estate is local, in many cases hyper-local, I guess is the buzzword, if you will. And so what we do every year is we pull together some 20 different areas or neighborhoods in Lexington and give you a snapshot of all the homes that sold in that area. We cover Merriam Hill, Monroe Hill, the Manor. We cover states, about 20
odd neighborhoods.
So that will be going out mid-February, that one. I have to do that one after the market review, but we'll be pulling that together as well.
And that just fills you in. If you live in those neighborhoods, you've seen it before, and it just shows you what's sold in the last 12 months. In your neighborhood and with pictures of them. So you say, oh yeah, I remember that
house.
Wow.
That's what it's sold for.
Yeah.
So that's all there. So expect that sometime mid-February, hopefully.
So our agenda for tonight. Okay, I'll try not to interrupt him too many times, but he interrupts me too as well. And
no way. I'm smarter than that. I'm way smarter than that.
In case you don't know, we're married. Okay, so we're going to go over single family homes. We're going to go over luxury sales, and we consider a luxury sale over $2 million. So that's where, the definition, or where that categorization comes from. New construction. Then we're going to go into condominiums, then into rentals, and 2022 predictions. So let's get going.
Let's get going with single families.
Yeah.
So most of what you see this evening will be a 10-year snapshot, so we can see some trends that go on. And in the market review, we do a kind of, which is about the fifth year we've done it now, we do a kind of rolling 10 years. So we look at the last 10 years. So first thing to look at is inventory levels. And let me explain a little about what that is. So first of the month, we go out and we say, how many homes are available to buy on the first of the month? The absolute number is kind of interesting, but what's really important, of course, is the longer term trend. And you can see the 10-year trend here. What you're seeing in that 2012 is the tail end of the so-called crash. And we've almost lost that. It was almost 10 years ago. Next year we will lose that. And you can see we've had relatively low inventory levels all the way through. Low in 2020, but even lower in 2021. So we saw very low inventory levels. And so when we did that kind of monthly snapshot, there weren't that many homes to buy.
But what we should point out, and you'll see with the next next screen,
Yep.
what do you call it
Slide.
these days? Slides, okay. What you see is, say for instance, if you look at 2020 and 2021's inventory levels, they're quite low. And you look at 2019, it's up a little bit. That's not indicative of how many homes sell in the year. That's indicative of how many homes are available for sale at the beginning of the month. So it's not counting the ones that come on the market on a Thursday, go under agreement on the Tuesday, come on the market Thursday, go under agreement Tuesday, go on the market Thursday, under agreement on Tuesday, and then you're back at the beginning of the month again. So it's not counting those, but these are just at a single point in time, how many homes are available for sale. Now, what we're
Actually,
talking...
let me put it that. So
Yeah.
it essentially is a measure of not of volume, but of how quickly homes sell.
Yeah.
If homes sell quickly, you're going to have lower inventory levels. If they take longer to sell, then you'll have
They're
higher
hanging
inventory. So
over.
it's a
Yeah.
measure of, to some extent, a measure of buyer demand, but also, and therefore, of how quickly homes go under agreement.
Now, I just happened to have a look just today. Again, we're in this sort of stuff all the time. And I was curious, how many homes are on the market in Lexington today? 9. 9 homes are on the market in Lexington today, and I think 4 of them were new construction. The average days on the market was 70 for those 9 homes that are on the market. One of those 9 came on the market today. So there's not many homes on the market, but the buyers are out in force. The buyers are out in force at the moment. One of the agents in our team made an offer on a home this week on Tuesday, and there were 24 offers on it. So
Kind of unheard of this early in January.
Yeah.
We do expect that in February or March as the spring
Yeah.
market kind of opens up, if you will. But it's unheard of. It's unusual to see that so early in the year.
Well, it's partly what we normally see. Our normal seasonality hasn't been normal seasonality for the last couple of years with COVID. Go figure, something's sort of different because of COVID. But we were having, the agents in our team, we were writing offers on homes in between Christmas and New Year and just before Christmas. Normally the winter market, probably you sort of see by about the beginning of November, there's not many sellers on the market. The buyers start going into hibernation and they don't really start to come out again until the winter breaks, what we term as breaking. In that, sorry, I'm digressing from stats at the moment, but this is what I'm trying. I'll tell you, if you want to know more about the seasonality, call me. But
that's for another presentation.
What I'm getting at, though, is that the buyers are out there right now and there's nothing on the market. And
Right.
They're normally not out there right now, but they are. And they were last year as well. Okay, now we can get back to...
It's a long time to get to that salient point.
But keep an eye on the 20 and 21 inventory levels, they're low. Now
when we
on
look
the
at home
next
sales,
screen,
there we go. Home
have a
sales.
look, 20 and 21, way up there. Sorry, you can talk now.
Okay. So in this graph, this is home sales. How many homes sold in 2020 or the last 10 years, actually? Blue is existing homes. The green color is new construction. And then that orange color are the off-market teardowns, the so-called teardowns in the market. They don't actually come on the market, get torn down and then converted into new construction.
And keep a thought on that as we get further on. 36 of them were direct off-market sales. So just hold that in the back of your head.
So we've seen both in 2020 and in 2021 more homes listed and therefore more homes sold. What it looks like is happening is this. If you look at the data from 2015 and the decline to 2019, there's an awful lot of sellers in that period there that were holding on to their homes, aging in place, taking advantage of home price appreciation, maybe renting the homes out. They certainly weren't putting their homes on the market. Once we saw the strength of the market in the second half of 2020, first half was, of course, buried in COVID, but the second half of 2020, a lot of homes came on the market. And we've seen that continue into 2021. So it's some of that excess that have come on the market and sold is making up for lost ground, if you will. But not all of it. So some of it is clearly new sellers who are looking to sell to take advantage of rising prices, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But there is a portion of it is new sellers. A portion of it is those sellers that were delaying coming on the market, but now thought this is the right opportunity with house prices at a very high level, and so now's a good opportunity. So that's what's going on, we think, with that reduction in number of home sales and number of listings all the way through to 2019, although 2019 there was talk of a recession. And then 2020 and 21, we see more homes coming on the market just to kind of make up for some of that lost ground, as well as some people, excuse the word, profit taking, if you like.
Well, and that's what it is. I mean, people capitalizing on the strong market. And I mean, personally, we bought a couple of homes that we owned on the market last year because we knew that the market was one for the record books. I mean, what was going on. Let's sell a couple of the rentals that we had just to try and capitalize. And, yes, it's a lot of people are doing that. We don't know if more people will do that, and this is part of the predictions. We're not sure whether that's still going to happen the rest of this year, because a lot of people would have taken advantage in 2021. Are they going to in 2022, or have they already sold? But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Never tell people what you're going to tell.
I know, but it was relevant.
So that's demand. That's supply. Excuse me. That's supply. So what's the story with demand? Were there just 326 plus 60, 386 people looking to buy a home in Lexington, or was there excess demand? A couple of metrics that are important to look at for that one. And the first one, you saw a little bit with the inventory level, the speed with which homes sell, but also days on the market, essentially how quickly they sell. That it's been upwards 40, 50, 60 was kind of the average in Lexington. As you can see, it dropped down to the 40s in 2019 and 2020, but here we are now at 28, a very low number. We've really never seen anything quite as low as that. Since 2018, which is when we had almost very few homes on the market, and certainly not enough to satisfy the buyer demand, and we're back in that situation. So low inventory, low days on the market, those two are very closely related. The other metric we look at is the ratio of the sale price to the list price. So imagine a home comes on the market for 1.2 million, sells for 1.2 million, that's 100% sale price to list price ratio.
Look at that sale price to list price ratio,
right.
106%.
Yeah,
on average.
Yeah, we've never got anywhere near those numbers. We're always in the high 98, 99, dipping into 100 really. It never really got much higher than that in Lexington. Other towns different. Arlington, for example, close by, that was always 103, 104%.
And their average this year is 109%.
109% in Arlington. 106 for Lexington is a very high number.
Yeah, dramatic.
And what's interesting, that's the 10-year number. If we look at the last 12 months, Two pieces in this graph. The blue bars are the number of homes that are sold, and the orange line is the sell price to list price ratio. So what's interesting is that ratio, started off a little bit slower, but it kept that high number all the way through, in fact, through to November. Not many homes sold in October. That's because not many homes were listed in August. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks to buy a home. But you can see that ratio, even then it dipped to just over 100%. But you can see that carried on throughout the year. And back to what Danny was saying about the buyers are still active, you can see that there. Yeah. If the buyers had been satisfied and bought by August, then that ratio clearly would declined in the second half of the year. And you can see there, it didn't really do that, except for that October period where there just weren't that many homes on the market.
We've never seen numbers like this, and we've been doing this for many, many years, and we've never seen numbers like this. This is
even approach that number. That's right. So we've got strong supply. We've got even stronger demand, and unsurprisingly, that means home prices increased. Yeah. The average home price in Lexington now at about 1,666,000. 1,667,000, and then the median price a little bit lower because it takes out some of the skew, 1.55. So that's a substantial rise. In fact, looking at the median, that's a $200,000 rise between to 2020 and actually we were at 1.2, so we saw a $150,000 rise last year too in the median. So that's a big increase in the last 2 years in terms of that price. Some of that caused by a shift in distribution. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But some of it just pure price appreciation, that we've got lots and lots of people competing for homes, pushing that ratio up to 106, and therefore that inevitably pushes the price up. So combination of slight change in the distribution, but also true price appreciation. In terms of the number of homes sold, this graph had more relevance last year. We were comparing 2020 with 19. What you can see here is actually COVID. So the orange color, pink color is 2020, and the blue color is 2021. What you can see at this point here, this flattening of the curve, if you're at a different curve, we're flattening here. This was COVID. Very few homes came on the market, therefore very few went under agreement. But as you can see by that kind of May timeframe, the market took off. And so the difference you're seeing here is just a strong market throughout 2021. And by the time we got to the end of December, we were at about parity. This is looking at when homes go under agreement, not when they sell, because I want to take away that kind of 6 to 8 week skew that we would see because of how long it takes to buy a home. So that's why the numbers you see here don't match the number of home sales. This is how many homes went under agreement in 2021 versus the number of homes that actually sold in 2021. So if anybody's looking at the numbers, that's why they're slightly different. So clearly a very strong market, no question about that. Let's turn to luxury. As Danny said, that's 2 million and above. That's kind of an arbitrary number, but that's the number we've chosen. It's quite interesting to look at luxury sales. As you can see, they've been rising steadily since the low point, if you like, in 2018, but the number of sales has risen dramatically, in 19 to 20, but even more so in terms of 20 to 21, both in terms of new construction, which is the green, and existing homes, which is the blue. A large number of luxury homes, and certainly that new construction number, that shows confidence that the builder community thinks and knows, in fact these are sales, not listings, that they can build at those higher prices. And you'll see that in a minute when we show the distribution.
But what's key to look at that, to me, it's key because you just heard that when homes came on the market, on average, they were selling at 109% over the asking price. 106 over the asking price. You corrected me.
I know, 9 in Arlington, because you were wrong, darling, that's why. What can I say? I do the numbers, I'm a numbers
106, guy. 106, so 106%. Remember back to that chart with the number of home sales, where you've got existing home sales, you had new construction, and you had direct off-market sales. Why were those sellers not bringing their home on the market when you've got such a strong market with so many buyers out there, and sometimes homes selling for way over market value prices, why were the people selling direct to someone off market?
Perennial question, but even more so in 2021, given how strong the market was. It just doesn't make sense. It rarely has it ever made sense, but certainly in 2021, it just doesn't make sense at all. And actually, we have some data right at the end that shows one situation where developers competed for a home together with home buyers and pushed the price way higher. But that's for later.
It's something to consider all the way through here. Is why are people selling off market? Is it because they don't know what needs to be done? They don't know how easy it is. One of our taglines is "Relax, we've got this." Mm-hmm. We can take it through and have someone not worry about how it's done, and get more money for their home. So it just saddens me when I see so many homes selling off market where the sellers could have gotten a lot more money. But anyway, let's keep on going.
So that was luxury sales. As you see, a somewhat dramatic. It's been more than a steady. It's been a dramatic rise both in 2020 and 2021. Strong market. Here's days on the market. Clearly not the low numbers we see in general. Of course, they're more expensive homes, but still 54, the lowest number we've seen in a long time. And the same is true of the sale price to list price ratio. It's not the 106 that we have for the market overall, but it's still sitting at 101, and we've never got over 100%. In the last, in fact, this is the last 10 years. In fact, you can go back to even further, and we've still never got that.
Yeah.
The next graph is quite interesting because it shows you the change in the profile, if you will, of over $2 million homes. This is the distribution. I should say distribution on the end there. Sorry about that.
Mistake.
What it is 18, 19. Well, I know
it's not me a mistake. It was you.
Changes. So what it shows is the distribution 18, 19, 20, and 21. And what you can see is more new construction, more luxury homes, coming on the market. Hence, the higher the numbers. But look at, for example, the 3 million plus as an example there. 2 in 2018, 4 in 2019. 7, okay, that's almost double, but it's still a very low number. But we went all the way from 7 to 19 homes sold over $3 million. So that's a very high number. You can say the same with the 2.5 to 3. We went from 4 to 20 to 33. And in fact, a shift, if you will, less homes in the 2 to 2.5 as developers in general move to that 2.5 to 3. So you can see that number just rising to 48, but more and more developers pushing out into those higher price points. So it's clear that whereas Lexington struggled with the very high prices, the 3 million and above, but only a few years ago, it certainly doesn't anymore. So it's kind of, as people are thinking, you would ordinarily think of Weston and Wellesley and Newton. I think you would put Lexington in that category now. So new construction, what's going on in that? Well, relatively flat actually, as it turns out. About the same number of new construction homes selling in 2021 versus 2020. I mean, some of that, of course, is the difficulty in buying homes and buying land in order to build. I mean, there is a challenge in terms of being able to do that, even with the off-market teardowns. Off-market teardowns running at about 35 or so. So, half of those are actually existing homes that came on the market that were actually converted into new construction.
Yeah, that the builders competed for.
Right, exactly. Again, here's the sale price distribution, and you can see, again, that kind of shift in the new construction pricing too. If I pick the 3 million plus, 2 to 2 to 2 to 8. That's a big change in terms of that. Yeah. And here you've seen a reduction, unsurprisingly, in the 1.5 to 2, just because they just doesn't make economic sense to build a new construction at that price point.
Yeah, we were typically starting to see the 1.5 to 2s being new construction on busy streets. But even now, no, they're starting to command a higher price of over $2 million now. So it's quite interesting how the market has shifted as quickly
and the economics of teardowns just don't work as well for on-market teardowns. If you think about $2 million, that's about a $700,000 teardown, or give or take, and there aren't very many of those. And buyers, and back to what you're talking about, the teardown market, if you think about a $700,000 home in Lexington, that's going to get, if it's in even decent condition, it's going to get many offers.
Yeah.
Probably, upwards of 10, even 20 offers on a home like that. So that's the new construction market. Condominiums. We didn't normally do condominiums. We kind of started doing them last year, but we thought it important to take a look at them because there are new construction condominiums, and of course there are a number of people in existing, Pfeiffer Lane, Drummer Boy, and Potter Pond, and so on. So
there's some two families around too, but not as many as in other towns around.
Not as many as in Arlington. Yeah. So condo sales, actually, as they do in, for example, you mentioned Arlington, that's the same. It does fluctuate. Some of it, the fluctuation here is based on new construction developments that are going in. And you can almost pinpoint each of the, in this case, I should say the blue is, again, existing homes and green is new construction. You can almost pinpoint when a condominium development came online. It's when the numbers increase, so you can kind of point them. So there's some variability.
We had 2020 was, with those 22, that was the Grove Street.
Yep.
The Grove
exactly
Street
right.
new construction. And then the end of 2021 is where the new construction in Lily Pond on Emerson Gardens Road.
We had a few of those. We actually had some hangover from Grove Street as well as a couple from the end of Emerson Gardens Road there. So it kind of does fluctuate. More condominium sales, focusing on the blue, more condominium sales in 21 than we saw in 2020. But if we look at the sale price to list price ratio, 101 still, I mean, it's more than 100, but nowhere near what we've seen in the single family.
Single families. Right. And part of that, I mean, we all sort of understand that during COVID, our requirements, what's important to people started shifting. People don't necessarily want to be in a shared living space with someone else, or, even just sharing a front door or the garage or something like that. They don't want to be doing that. And a lot of people, with the fact that they're not necessarily having to go into work every day, if they have $1 million to spend, or 1.2 or something like that, and they even less than that, and would have considered a condo in the past, well, maybe I don't need to be as close into Boston. Let me take that money and go and buy in Groton or somewhere where it was less expensive and they could get into a single family house there. So we're sort of seeing that general migration that we're seeing around the country of people starting to reprioritize what's important to them in where they live and how many offices they have at home and how, the outdoor. That's impacting the condo market. Whether that's going to come back.
Before you go there, what I was going to say was thinking maybe not going quite as far as Groton, but if you come back a little bit to Acton, strong school system in Acton, the average sale price to list price ratio for a single family in Acton was 106%. It's never that high. It's just too far out to be a manageable commute for many people. Now, as you say, manageable commute means 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week, and lo and behold, still in a great school system, shall I buy close in, perhaps a condo in Lexington, or do I go for a single family in a little bit further out? So that's one of the reasons you're seeing a high sale price to list price in Acton.
We bought a home on the market in Acton earlier in the year, and we had something like 18 offers on it. Right. I mean, that's unheard of in Acton. So that's what's happening around the country. So whether this will sort of start settling down and some people go back to normal, I think it's... Anyway, we're going to talk about that. I just want to talk about what's going to happen.
In a minute. Does that mean... Oh, no. So let's look at average sale prices for all condos. It declined, but we had less new construction this year than we did in 2020. And that's why we see that average sale price decline. It's really been skewed by the lack of new construction, and new construction condos in general sell for a higher price. So let's back out the new construction. Let's look at existing condos, because there's kind of a story to be told here. So here's the average sale price for existing condominiums. By that, Potter Pond, Pfeiffer Lane, and so on and so on. We did see a decline. High point in 2018, 19 and 20, we saw that decline. Two reasons behind that. Certainly 20 was because of COVID.
The shared,
but also, if you think about
environment.
the average price here at about 700 or so, it's very comparable with the average price of a condominium in Arlington. But given that most of the condos in Lexington are in developments, most of the condominiums in Arlington are in two-family, the condo fees are, when I looked at these last year, about double in Lexington than they are in Arlington, the average condo fee. And so there is this dilemma, I think, for buyers. Do I move into Lexington, pay the $700,000 price tag for a condominium, and have to pay on top of that $500, $600, $700 a month condominium fee? Or do I pay a similar price for the condominium in Arlington, but lo and behold, I only have to pay $250 a month in condo fees? So those are that COVID as well, of course, but that was also one of the reasons why we saw that decline.
And especially with the fact that Arlington's school system is increasing on an annual basis. It's
Yep.
It's in the top tier now, in the top tier of schools. So, before Lexington had the school system that was that additional pool. Yeah, they still get a pretty good school in Arlington. So that's a lot to do with that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Having said that, that was kind of what happened in 1920 and 21. Of course, as you can see, the average price for condominium rose, from $600 or $700 to about $800 to about $100,000. So we have seen an increase in prices after falling prices. And so it's still got, it is over the high point of 2018, but it's still nowhere near as strong as a single family home market where we just have seen continual rising prices. So condominiums. A quick look at rentals. We just throw them in just to see what's going on. It's a more interesting story in other towns. Maybe we'll talk about that in a moment. Rentals, they're roughly about the same. We saw a slight decline in 2020 in terms of the number of homes rented, but it's coming back to, but slightly less than we saw in 18 and 19. What's interesting is if you look at the number of rentals in Arlington, next town over, that was dramatically higher than it had been in prior years. And what's going on there is sellers essentially, or homeowners, making a choice. Do I sell? Do I capitalize on the high prices by selling? Or do I capitalize on the price appreciation by putting it on the rental market? And so there was a combination of those two. Some sellers, of course, put their home on the market. Some decided to put them on the rental market.
But a large number put them on the rental market.
Right.
Yeah, large number put them on the rental market.
We've not seen that in Lexington. We just haven't seen that the sellers making that call. So we've just not seen that. And so we've got roughly static numbers. So that's why it's interesting. But it's interesting when you compare what we've seen in some other towns. Rents have started to rise. They've been relatively flat for a number of years, as you can see. They've been in the kind of 3,700s, the average rent. It rose slightly, but really not by very much. Anybody who has a rental in Lexington, the growth, the reason to have it is price appreciation. It really isn't an increase in the average rents. They just say they've been relatively flat now for over a decade. Here we are. It was only $3,000 back in 2012, and here we are in 2020. They were $3,700. So it's essentially flat. The rental return. It's all about price appreciation.
But you could capitalize on the market if you've got a rental. We took our own advice and we sold a couple of our rentals because of that. And it's all about the market being one for the record books. Why not take advantage of it and do something else with the money? Yeah. So
kind of wrap up those. That's the raw data. Let's kind of wrap that one up and take a look at perhaps what's happening here. So this is the sale price distribution. Again, same colors, blue, green, and that kind of orange color. 2020 versus 2021. We put them kind of side by side with the same scale, so you could see what happened. And what's interesting is, let's look at below $1 million. 18, 38, 34, 10, 16, 20. So we've seen a lot less homes sell below $1 million in 2021. than we saw in 2020, which is interesting.
Some of those have moved into the $1 million.
That's true. Some of those 900s have moved into over $1 million, but the 700s haven't.
No.
So we have seen a net reduction in the number of sub-$1 million homes coming on the market. And what's interesting about that is that that's a very strong price range, I should say. And, back to what Danny was mentioning about the teardown market, it's almost, you can almost say with certainty that if those homes were presentable, those 10, 16 and 20, they sold with multiple offers.
The 17 and, yes. Sorry, and the 17 and 6 that sold off market.
Correct. Yeah, could have clearly, got a lot more money by doing that. We've seen some more homes sell in the 1 to 1.5 that we shift the scale a little bit once we get over $1 million. But the big change really is in that 1.5 to 2 and the 2.5 to 3 and the 3 million plus. So we've seen more expensive homes selling about the same number in, give or take, in that 1 to 1.5. Quite a large band, but in that 1 to 1.5 band. So that's kind of the distribution shift we've seen. And some of that price increase, of course, is a consequence of less expensive homes selling and more expensive homes selling. So when you look at the average and the median, that's not all price appreciation. Some of it clearly is, but not all of it. Yeah. You need to factor in that skew, that additional skew that we've seen. It's always been slightly skewed, but it's that skew has been increasing as more and more expensive homes come on. And this year, less expensive homes came on. So read that sale price increase. It's not all price appreciation, so kind of buyer beware to some extent with that percentage number. What's also interesting is to look at the distribution of sale price to list price. Now, traditionally, for the last 3 to 4 years, it's been 50-50, give or take. This year it shifted to essentially 70-30.
And what Marcus is talking about here is the sale price to list price distribution. That's if a home comes on the market at $1 million and sells for $1 million, again, what we were saying, it's 100%. 72% of the homes that were sold in Lexington in 2021 sold for at or over the asking price. That's an awful lot of really happy sellers, because when you think about it, when a home sells for over the asking price, well, the sellers can go away and sort of think, wow, there's all these buyers really want to buy my home. They've fallen in love with my home just as I love my home. I feel really good about this. This is fantastic. And the buyers are so excited because also they've been making offer after offer after offer and not getting those homes. And all of a sudden they've got this home and it's exactly what they wanted. It's a win-win situation. When a home sells for below the asking price, that's a whole different kettle of fish, because
very much so.
The sellers, why doesn't anyone want my home? I love my home. Why don't people feel the same way about my home? So it's so much, it's fantastic to see that 72% sold for over the asking price. And part of why they sell for over the asking price and how you can make sure that your home gets into that category, you need to talk to us about our advanced selling strategies masterclasses, or our selling masterclasses, because this is part of what's important. I mean, look, the seller who got 141% over the asking price, they were pretty happy. The seller that got 74% of their asking price, actually, that was Rachel Grabowski in our team. She was the buyer's agent for that one. She bought
happy buyers, not so happy sellers.
Happy buyers. And I mean, in this hugely strong market, 74% of the asking price. Yeah, that's
And back to what you were saying about teardowns. One more anecdote on teardowns, and then we'll stop on the anecdotes about teardowns. I don't think it was that one, but I think it was this one, the second one in. That was where homeowners and developers competed and pushed the price way high.
Over.
And so back to that, developers are being forced to. They wish they could, didn't have to, but they're being forced to compete.
And the developer got this one at the end.
They did actually. The developer paid the most in that case. So
even if you think your home is a tear down, Look at what happened
Yeah, look at
there.
what happened there.
Look at what happened. The seller got 138% over the asking price, and that's even as a tear down.
Right.
So
So
there's no reason you shouldn't come on the market.
there you go. Yeah, we're done. Okay, so here we go. Wider perspective. So what's kind of driving the market here? Two things. The first one, of course, is the ramifications, the impact of COVID, if you like. That is changing housing demand. That's the big change that we're seeing. That's the big push in the housing market. This is the reason why Acton has got that very high sale price to list price ratio, because buyers are traditionally perhaps wouldn't have gone that far out, but now they're looking for a little bit more space, a little bit more land, space in the house, a little bit more land, and I don't have to worry so much about the commute. Not giving up on the school system, of course. That's almost that's a given, actually. That one the buyers don't negotiate on, but they will negotiate on the rest. So that housing demand is clearly one major thing that's happening. The other one, and really what we would be talking about were it not for COVID, is what's going on with the demographic shift. And I've shown this graph many times before, although this is now the demographics for the last census, so it's more up to date. The last one I think was in 2015. This shows you how many people are in each age bracket.
Blue is men, red is women.
That's true.
Just thought I'd throw that in.
There you go. Two areas are important. Top one and the bottom one. Now the top one is those homeowners, those people who were born after World War II. So
after World War II.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, well after World War II.
The so-called baby boomers. But the baby boomers. They have now got to retirement age and therefore are becoming into retirement age, and therefore they're thinking about downsizing. So
and the kids have graduated the school system.
Exactly.
And
so they're looking to sell their existing home and buy, in general, a smaller home, their next home. So there's two, that's one effect in the market. The other effect in the market, of course, is the millennials, first-time home buyers. There's a lot of them. They are now coming into the housing market as the first-time home buyers, and so they're driving the market too. So there is the normal, of course, relocation and people moving up the housing ladder and so on. But these two demographic changes is really was driving the market, and to some extent still is, of course, as a kind of underlying shift in demand and supply in terms of what we're driving the market. So.
And when you look at that, when you talk about first-time home buyers, yeah, sure, they're not impacting the Lexington market typically, but they are impacting other markets around, and those sellers of those homes in those other towns, whether it be a condominium or a single family in, say, Arlington or Waltham or Woburn or Burlington, they're then buying their next home in Lexington. So it still does fuel the Lexington market, not necessarily
kind of
directly.
An extra hop. This graph really explains why we're seeing, we're back to Arlington, and just because it's the next town over, that 109% sale price list price ratio. There is the COVID effect, but there's also first-time home buyers coming in. Average price in Arlington now just over $1 million. Average price here in Lexington 1.6, so big difference. But also the downsizers. Moving out of a Lexington or a Winchester or a Belmont, the surrounding towns, looking to move into Arlington. So those two groups are also doubling down, if you will, and that's why that ratio in Arlington is higher than we even see here in Lexington.
And then those homes that are sold in Arlington by the people, they're moving into
Lexington and so on, right?
Or a shuffle.
Right, there's kind of this whole shuffle that goes on. So that's kind of the COVID effect, that changing how housing demand's driving it, but also some demographic changes longer term, which is kind of the longer term shift in terms of the market. And even were it not for COVID, or when the effect of COVID begins to diminish, this will still be there. This has not played out yet. You can see that with the millennials. There are more in the 25 to 29 than there are in the 30 to 34. Those 25 to 29s, many of those are going to be first time. So this whole thing hasn't played out yet. So that will continue as we look at the next decade or so in terms of the housing market. So that's a positive picture long term in terms of the way the market is going. We should look at interest rates because there's so much talk about interest rates. So let's give you what the predictions are, what the actuals are, the blue, and what the analysts think what it's going to do in 2021. Buyer beware here. We've been tracking this for a while, and they're not very good. Now, I guess it's hard to do, otherwise they'd be accurate at it. So, let's see how it plays out. But today, anyway,
been tracking it. We've been including these in masterclasses in these mortgage rate predictions for probably the last 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not very good. No.
So who knows what's going to happen with them this year?
I think what's clear though is they're rising. But the reason I put this in is to kind of give you the perspective. This goes back to all the way back. He says to 2009, all the way back. We're still almost the lowest we've seen since 2020 and 2021. So it's not like we're going to see a dramatic increase in mortgage interest rates. At least the predictions say this. Maybe it'll get to 4%. Okay, well, that's fine. 4%, we were there in 2014, 2015, 2016, when the market was very strong. So it's not going to get to a level, at least, as best we can see, that it begins to have a major impact on buyers' ability to buy.
That's the important thing.
Right.
That's the important
It may have some impact. It may kind of bring down price appreciation a little, or the sale price list price ratio. Maybe they can't afford 106. Maybe they can only afford 105. Well, time will tell. But it's certainly not going to have a dramatic impact on the housing market.
It's still not a huge difference,
Right.
Yeah.
So, should we skip over the predictions or not?
Oh.
So, predictions.
Do you want to go first?
You want me to go first? Okay, normally Danny goes first on this one.
Well, I'm just saying, who do you want to go first?
Okay. So.
No, I'm going first.
Okay, there we go. I knew that was happening.
Well, I've already talked about part of it all the way along.
Reiterate what you already
said. So, I'm out sort of seeing sellers all the time, and our team are working with buyers all the time, and we're working with buyers. I don't think we're going to see a difference in the market at all from what we had in 2021. I just don't think we're going to see that difference. The buyers are active now. They're out there. They're looking to buy. There's not much on the market. They aren't buying homes that are overpriced or have some fundamental issues with them. So 9 homes on the market. Yes, some of those are new construction and they're not quite ready to be purchased yet. But there are some sub $1 million homes on the market, but they're overpriced, and there's some challenges with them. So it would be foolish to think that the buyers are so desperate that they'll buy anything. They won't. That's clearly not the case, because the buyers are educated. They go week after week after week looking for homes to buy in the price range that they can afford. So if something comes on at a silly price, they're not going to touch it. But I think based on what I'm seeing with the number of sellers coming on the market, there's not a huge flurry of people getting ready to come on. I mean, yes, we've got some lined up coming up in the next month or so, but there's not a huge flurry of them. So I think we're still going to have low supply. Our inventory levels are not going to increase dramatically enough to squash the buyer demand that's there. But there are so many buyers still out there that haven't bought. So again, this market, at least for the foreseeable future, maybe it will change in June or July or August. We don't know. Don't know what's going to happen with the fall market, but I think the spring/summer market is going to be very much some of the same of what we had in 2021. In fact, and this is where, again, we take our own advice, we're getting one of our rental properties ready to come on the market to capitalize on that again, because there's so much more. Anyway, that's what I see is going to happen to the market. Yeah, that's what I see is going to happen. Okay. It's going to continue on how it is now. If you're thinking about selling, do it now.
We saw an increased number of sellers coming in the market in 2020 and 2021. Clearly, that didn't satisfy the demand. No. There's no question about that. That high sale price to list price ratio is where, even with increased supply, demand outstripped supply. All those buyers in 2021, they didn't all succeed.
Oh, no.
All those prospective buyers, I should say, didn't all succeed. So there are still a large number of buyers in the market, potential buyers in the market, who haven't bought yet.
24 on a home this week.
There you go. So 23. There's 23. One was successful. 23 were not.
Yeah.
What that means is that we will continue to see, even if supply remains at the same levels we saw in 2020 and 2021, we will still see appreciable price appreciation or substantial price appreciation as buyers compete for home and therefore drive the prices higher. Now, what that means, of course, is that there's no impediment to sellers putting their home on the market. There isn't anybody thinking, oh, I think it's going to decline, I think I should put it on the market now. What many sellers are doing, thinking now's a great time, I want to take advantage of it, I want to get on, go into the next stage of my life. And so we are going to see more sellers, or at least the same number that we saw in 2020 and 2021 in 2022, but that the buyer demand is continuing to increase.
And I think a lot of people, I don't think there's going to be a huge influx of sellers this year when you compare
over what we saw in
2021, because if someone was thinking about selling, remember at the end of 2021, well, when we were getting close to it, kids were back at school, people were starting to travel again, we're all vaccinated, COVID's coming to an end, we're starting to think. No, that hasn't happened, but I really think that if someone was thinking about selling, they would have done it in 2021, seeing the signs of the market beginning to revert to normal.
Mm-hmm.
But with Omicron, that hasn't happened. It's going to continue on, and people are still again thinking lifestyle.
Right. That's the major driver in the market.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a demographic shift. That's been there all along.
Yeah.
But the reason we've gone from 101% sale price list price to 106 or 109 in Arlington is because of that changing lifestyle, and that hasn't played out yet.
No.
Maybe it will, sometime in second half of 22, early 23. Maybe it will eventually, of course, play itself out of the market, and we'll get back to that demographic, that underlying demographic shift that's kind of driving the market. But that's not going to happen in early 22. Yeah. If it does, it will be much further out. Yeah. That has a long way that has a lot to play out.
Because I think most sellers, if they were thinking about selling, they would have done it in 2021.
It's true. And buyers are no longer thinking, well, we're going to get back to normal, having to commute into the office 5 days a week in mid 22. They're not. I mean, everything we hear is that the hybrid work model is the model that we will continue with. That looks to have longevity. It's not a 1 year wonder. It has longevity. So buyers are now thinking, now it makes sense to go and buy that larger home a little bit further out, perhaps, because guess what? I'm going to be in that position moving forward. And when I move to the next job, I'm going to make a requirement of moving to the next job that I want a hybrid work model. So that's why we're seeing that it hasn't, the whole COVID effect, if you want to call it that, has not played itself out.
Yeah.
It's still got a way to go. And that's why 2022 will be a strong year for sellers bringing their home on the market, getting those high prices, and for buyers, it's going to be a tough year for buyers, of course, because there's so many of them. But they are going to be out there in force looking for that home that meets their new requirements. So, strong year for 2022. I think we can say that with some certainty. How strong will depend on how many homes come on the market. How long it
lasts
continues
into 2022, because typically our fall market is a lot quieter and a lot more depressed. It's a lot less energetic than the spring market in each year. So what's going to happen in fall? We may
well revert to that kind of more seasonal model that we've seen previously.
Oh, I can talk about that now?
No, you can't. No. That's for another presentation. All right, so there we go. That's our prediction. So strong 2022 for sellers, for buyers. Sorry about this. It's going to be a tough year, not just here in Lexington, but at almost whatever town you're looking to buy in the area. It's going to be tough because there are lots of buyers out there, and so ultimately not enough supply to satisfy them.
So why do we live stream to Facebook and Twitch and YouTube because that's who we're
And
streaming
then it's on
to
our,
right
it's on our
tonight
blog.
now.
Put it on our blog afterwards too.
Yeah. Why do we do this? Because we think that our clients deserve to be the smartest people at the closing table. We want the folks that we work with to know exactly what's going on with the market.
Right.
But we all benefit by becoming smarter about home buying and selling, which is why, look, I keep going back to this, the tear downs. It really distresses me when I hear how 36 sellers this year didn't get the highest price they could for their home. And that just, if that information gets out there to people where they sort of think, maybe I should do it something, I'm getting on my soapbox. Anyway, we want people to become smarter about selling and buying. All right. Okay, I'm done. Okay. So, look, we want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's a lovely way to, we like talking about this stuff. We talk it all the time, all of this sort of stuff. So it's lovely to share it with you. I really wish we could see you though.
Yeah.
And if you had questions and things like this. But,
it's so much easier.
But email us, call us, whatever. If you've got questions, we'll happily talk through the market.
And look out for the market review and the neighborhood sales in your mailbox. Market review first week of February. Neighborhood sales hopefully second week, third week of February.
And
so
if you're
look out for those.
And if you're not living in the town yet, I will send a recording of this out and
reach out to us.
And the market review will be on the website, the physical booklet. And we can, if you want one,
we'll put one in the mail
to you. So anyway, look, we're rambling on now. So thank you so much for joining us and bye.
Bye.